I'm Molly Kimball. Welcome to Fueled, a wellness and nutrition podcast. I'm a registered dietitian and nutrition journalist with a passion to help people live their strongest, healthiest life possible. In my weekly TV segments and columns, there's a limited amount of time and space to cover everything, but there's so much more to share. This podcast is my opportunity to dive deeper into the topics you want to know about. Today, we are talking yogurt, and specifically Greek yogurt, but beyond Greek to things like Icelandic yogurt, Bulgarian yogurt, all these different options we're seeing on shelves. Are they really good for us? What are the health benefits? Which ones should we avoid? What to look for on labels? And then also my top picks for all of these different types of yogurt. So lots to dive into. And here's kind of one of those fun facts. I love this one about Greek yogurt specifically. So just a little over a decade ago, probably in about 2007, Greek yogurt was only a specialty item found at just a few stores that were actually importing it from Greece. And the leading Greek yogurt brands like Chobani and Fage didn't really start to produce Greek yogurt in the United States until about 2007 or 8. And Fage was actually the first one to make their way over here. Fage being the brand, it looks like Fage, F-A-G-E, but it's pronounced Fage. So they were the first true, authentic Greek yogurt manufacturer that opened up in the United States, and they were closely followed by Chobani. And both are popular brands, of course. Both are called Greek yogurt. But interestingly, Chobani is actually a Turkish company, a Turkish brand. And so but kind of piggybacking on the popularity at that time of something like Fage and calling itself Greek yogurt as well. So it stuck. So ever since then, the selection of Greek style yogurts in the United States has exploded. There's so many more brands available, as well as, like we said, things like Icelandic yogurt, German yogurt, even Asian or Bulgarian yogurt. But having more options means there's also more labels to decipher, which also means we're more confused when we're standing there in the dairy aisle in the store. So to help explain and hopefully simplify things for you, here's a rundown on the different types of yogurts available, including health benefits of yogurt in general, and especially the authentic good yogurts, and how they're made and the similarities and differences of each. So, and I'm also including a checklist of sorts of what to look for on labels, what to steer clear of, and like I said, my top picks. So starting with Greek yogurt. So what we call Greek yogurt here in the US is actually referred to as strained yogurt in other parts of the world, because that's exactly what it is. It's yogurt that's been strained to remove that thin, watery liquid and leaving behind that thicker Greek yogurt, or what we call Greek yogurt, but leaving behind that thicker yogurt. So the watery liquid that runs off, that's drained off, is mostly water, of course, and then natural milk sugars. And what's left behind is a thicker, protein-rich yogurt. So basically, if you think about it, it's regular yogurt strained. You could imagine or visualize it with like a cheesecloth or something like that, of course, done on like giant scale. But people do make their own Greek-style yogurt at home by taking regular yogurt, straining it with a cheesecloth. You let that liquid come out, and then what you're left with is higher protein Greek yogurt. So authentic Greek style yogurt really does live up to its reputation as a health food, though. So we've been marketed to as if it's healthy for us. We see it on the label. We think that it's a good option. And when it is true, authentic Greek yogurt, it absolutely is. So ounce for ounce, it has twice as much protein as even regular non-fat yogurt. It also has 40% less sugar than even that plain non-fat yogurt. And Greek yogurt, or these other yogurts that we'll be talking about, they're also good sources of calcium and vitamin D. And of course, what they're most popular for, they're most known for, is the fact that they are incredibly rich in probiotics. So they're made with these live active cultures. They're refrigerated. We know that they're in there. We're not guessing like something if we're taking a supplement capsule. So many times we're reaching for the yogurt, not only for the calcium, the protein, but especially for those probiotics. So you may have noticed that authentic Greek style yogurt often also comes with a higher price tag. And There's probably a bunch of reasons for that. But one in particular is going to be the fact that it takes so much more milk to make that yogurt because, again, you're straining and you're losing a lot of it. So it takes about 3 to 4 cups of milk to make one single cup of the strained Greek style yogurt. So if you're looking at the price difference, that's part of the reason why. Unfortunately, many of the thicker Greek, and we would say Greek in air quotes, many of the Greek products on the yogurt aisle, they're not true, authentic, strained yogurt. They're instead just regular yogurt that is thickened with add ins like cornstarch, gels, gums. A lot of these add extra carbs unnecessarily. They're basically regular yogurt that has stuff in it to thicken it instead of being strained in that authentic Greek style. So basically, as you can see, there's not a standard definition for the term Greek yogurt. Pretty much any type of yogurt, and even foods that really contain little or no actual yogurt, can still be labeled as if they are some variation of Greek yogurt. We see it all the time on cereals, cereal bars that are essentially just like candy bars. Even things like mayonnaise will be in dips, sour cream kind of dips. They'll be labeled with Greek really big on it. It makes it look like it's got all this Greek yogurt in it. And when you look at the ingredients, a lot of times it's basically a yogurt powder or other things that are really a far stretch to say Greek yogurt, but they're using that, blasting it on the front of the package to up their game and making us think that it's healthier. So it's key to always read the ingredient list carefully, not just trusting what it says on the front of the label. So we'll talk about that in a bit of exactly what to look for on that list. So that's kind of the rundown on Greek yogurt. You've probably seen other types of yogurts. And one of my favorites is an Icelandic yogurt. Siggy's, for example, is an Icelandic yogurt. There's another brand called Smari, and these are similar to Greek yogurt in that they're both strained yogurts. But what makes that Icelandic style yogurt, and they'll call it skyr, SKYR, that's the Icelandic word for yogurt. What makes these different is that they're strained even more than Greek yogurt, leaving behind something that's even thicker and protein rich as that yogurt. You'll see Bulgarian yogurt also, and this is almost the reverse. So, unlike Greek style yogurt, Bulgarian yogurt isn't strained, and actually, part of that liquid that's strained out does contain probiotics. And so, the fact that Bulgarian yogurt is not strained means that none of those probiotics are lost. And what sets Bulgarian yogurt aside, and you'll see it, there's a brand called White Mountain, is often sold in really big quantities, like big quart jars in the yogurt section of kind of natural food stores. So a Bulgarian yogurt like White Mountain is different from most types of mass produced yogurts because it's actually fermented for about 24 hours. And this long fermentation time of the Bulgarian yogurt also contributes to it having a higher concentration of those live active cultures. So when we're thinking about benefit of yogurt being these live active cultures, and if that's one of the main reasons that you're looking at yogurt, try Bulgarian yogurt. It doesn't have near the high protein ratio like Greek yogurt does, but it is high in probiotics. It also has a really intense tartness. And then there's a German yogurt, and I'm seeing this more and more on shelves. It's called Quark, and it's spelled Quark. And there's several different brands that I've seen, and you'll see it sometimes referred to as a German yogurt, but technically it isn't yogurt. It's more of like a creamy, spoonable cheese with a similar texture to yogurt. And so it's made by fermenting cultured milk. And the plain version of it is just really simple. It's just milk, live active cultures, and a vegetable rennet. So it's this cheese that has a texture like yogurt, but it's a lot less tart. So if you want the benefits of yogurt, but you don't love the tartness of it, try Quark. If you see it in your stores, it might kind of fit that bill. So whether you're reaching for Greek yogurt, Bulgarian yogurt, German yogurt, when it comes to what to look for on labels, pretty much the same guidelines across the board. So just like any other product on shelves, we want to look for that clean, streamlined ingredient list. So typically we say things that we would have already in our own kitchen. We may not have live active cultures in our kitchen as an ingredient, but other than that, we at least recognize that. We know what that is, and it's not a wacky ingredient in there. So when we're looking at the ingredient list simple, streamlined. So, milk and live active cultures. That's really all we need to create an authentic, nutrient rich yogurt or something like the Greek style yogurt. Anything beyond milk and live active cultures is just extra. And so, it's up to us if we really need it or want it. And that's usually going to be in products that add flavors, fruits may be added, any of that. But beyond milk and live active cultures, anything else is just excess. The second rule of thumb is to look for more protein than carbs. So I like to look for yogurt that has at least 15 grams of protein and not more than about 6 grams of carbs per serving. That way I know that number one, it doesn't have a lot of sugar added, but number two, it also doesn't have a lot of the thickeners, carbohydrate rich add ins that some of those kind of Greek yogurt fake outs have. So at least 15 grams of protein, not more than about 6 grams of carbs per serving is my ideal. Number three is no added sugar. So if you see words like just sugar or agave nectar, evaporated cane juice, honey, even if it's the organic version of these, it's still just sugar and it's still just added sugar that has really minimal nutritional value. And my fourth rule of thumb when I'm looking at labels, so streamlined ingredient list, more protein than sugar, and finally, no artificial sweetener. So if you like it flavored, my preference is to use something like a plain Greek yogurt and add our own fresh fruit. And side note on that, even if you use fruit that's frozen, then thawing it out, it's still no added sugar. And when you thaw out something like berries, it actually kind of gives a syrupiness to it without adding any added sugar. So doing something like blueberries frozen, let them thaw, they kind of release their own juices. Putting that through your yogurt can give it a little bit of that feel that you've added a bunch of sugar in there, but you haven't. But if you like the uniformity of something like a blended Greek style yogurt, at least look for brands on shelves that don't contain any artificial sweetener. There's many out there now that are sweetened with things like stevia, monk fruit, or erythritol. So, two questions I get are what about non dairy yogurts? The same rules apply when looking at labels for non dairy yogurts as regular dairy based yogurts. So, still looking for that streamlined ingredient list, little or no added sugar, and not having these unnecessary ingredient add ins. The main drawback I usually find, though, is that dairy free yogurts like a coconut yogurt or almond milk based yogurt, they usually have very little protein, just about 1 or 2 grams per carton. Now, there's exceptions to that, but that's typically if you're looking at a coconut milk or almond milk yogurt, you can still get plain with very, very low in sugar. So you're still getting the flavor of that, just not the protein. I also get the question a lot of what if I'm lactose intolerant? It depends on how lactose intolerant you are, but yogurt is often avoided by people with lactose intolerance, but unnecessarily because the probiotics that are in yogurt actually help us digest that lactose. So they kind of do a lot of the work to digest that lactose for us. So people with lactose intolerance often can have yogurt without having typical symptoms. But again, everyone's different. It's definitely going to vary depending on how sensitive you are. But it's something that if you've been avoiding it, you may try it in just small amounts and see how you react. So, when it comes to my top picks and also some of the ones that I steer clear of in the dairy case, there's so many options out there. So, this is definitely not the end all be all. These are just my go to favorites, and these are the ones that are always in my refrigerator. So, Faye, the 2% plain Greek yogurt, is my all time favorite. That's the one I mentioned. It was the first one to come to the US in 2007, 8. It's a true, authentic Greek yogurt strained. It has 20 grams of protein, just 150 calories, and 6 grams of carbs and sugar. I like the 2% better than the fat free. I find that the texture, the flavor, it just tastes better. And the texture of it, that little bit of fat, it works really well in recipes. I use it in place of sour cream or mayonnaise all the time in different types of recipes. So it's my go to Greek yogurt for nutrition, flavor, texture, creaminess. I love it. And I find that this specific brand of Greek yogurt and specifically the 2% just works best in all the different ways that I'm going to use it, from smoothies to making popsicles or using it in baked recipes. My other favorite is Siggi's. So they have a lot of flavored Siggi's that even their flavored yogurts aren't really that high in sugar. They actually, one of the mottos they'll have says simple ingredients, not a lot of sugar, and that'll be kind of across the top of the carton. So this is a close second, but even though their flavored aren't very high in sugar, I still prefer the plain because they do just have a really simple, streamlined ingredient list. And so that first one is Fage, Fage, and specifically the 2% plain. The second one that we're saying is Siggi's, it's Siggi. And then lastly, if someone is a big fan of flavored Greek yogurts, especially those that are real homogeneous, uniform, all in one. You stir your spoon through it. You don't see a whole lot of chunks of fruit. You just kind of see all one color of, say, lavender or something like that for your flavored yogurts. Then you're probably going to like Oikos Triple Zero. So when we're looking at something like a Yoplait flavored yogurt, most of the Dannon flavored yogurts, the sugars are crazy high for just the regular ones, 28-ish grams of sugar. So, and not very much protein at all. So, if you're a typical um, flavored yogurt person and haven't really made the switch to Greek, try the Oikos. And they do have some that are sugary. So, specifically the one that says 000. And the 000 means no added sugar, no artificial sweetener. And I can't remember what the third zero is, but there's 3 zeros it's got on the front. So, no artificial sweetener, no added sugar. And a 120 calorie carton has about 15 grams of protein with just 7 grams of carbs and sugar. So those are my top 3 picks. 2 of them I really love. That third one is kind of my recommendation for someone who wants that blended flavored yogurt. When I look at which ones to steer clear of, Greek Gods, Greek yogurt. The way the writing looks on it, you would think it came straight from Greece, that it looks like this like true authentic Greek yogurt. It is just bad news all around. So depending on the flavor, you're going to be getting a lot of added sugars, usually at least 2 different types like honey or even powdered honey, brown sugar, cane sugar, evaporated cane syrup. So Greek Gods, I don't love it all. If that's one that you've been reaching for, switch to one of the others we just said. I also don't love Activia. It's not as bad as a lot of the ones on the shelves, but it's also the way that it's marketed as if it has more and special and better probiotics. All yogurt and especially Greek yogurts are going to be great probiotics. So the Activia Greek 0% fat, milk, sugar, water are the first ingredients. Most yogurt doesn't have water. And then the fourth is modified food starch. So things that are just not necessary in there. So we're looking at milk, sugar, water, modified food starch, carob bean gum. So things in here that we don't have to settle for, we don't have to compromise for when we have all these other brands on shelves. And then Chobani yogurt and the regular Oikos Greek yogurt, also not my favorites. The sugar in there is just really high, more sugar than protein. Some of these are also sweetened with sugar, thickened with food starch, and so not my favorite. You'll also see a lot of like the Dannon Light and Fit Greeks. These are lower sugar, but they're also artificially sweetened. Chobani used to have this Simply 100. They discontinued it, but I am seeing a lower sugar Chobani popping up here and there in stores. Not consistently enough for me to see it to say, go for that one. It's also just lower sugar Chobani. It's not necessarily low sugar, but it is still better than the regular Chobani yogurt. So keep an eye out for that one. So lots of information here, but I think the bottom line is keep it simple, streamlined ingredients. Beyond milk and live active cultures, everything else is optional. When you're looking at the labels, does it have more protein than sugar? And ideally, that 20 grams of protein, 15, 20 grams of protein, not more than about 7 grams of carbs. And looking at it to see not just what's on the front of the label, turn it over and see what's really in it. So I realize that there's a lot of people who don't love yogurt, first of all, and especially don't love plain yogurt or Greek yogurt. It's a little too tart, too sour. So even for those of you who think that you don't love it, there are easy ways that we can incorporate Greek yogurt into our diets and using it as a replacer for other ingredients without even noticing it. So we get the benefit of the calcium, the D, the protein, the probiotics. So here are basically about a dozen ways, sweet and savory, that we can get more Greek yogurt into our diets. So, for starters, an easy swap out is use Greek yogurt in place of mayonnaise. Cup for cup, just use it like mayonnaise, especially for things like creamy dips. Same thing goes for sour cream. So, if you're doing a spinach dip, shrimp dip, crab meat dip, any of that kind of thing, we can use Greek yogurt. And again, I love that Fage, Fage, the plain 2%, not fat free, and use it cup for cup instead of mayonnaise or sour cream. One tip too, if you're using it for sour cream, of course, you can use it to top anything that you would use sour cream for. I also love it for popsicles. And so you can blend Greek yogurt, again, the 2%, not fat free. You can blend it with any type of fruit, fresh or frozen. I love to add in herbs. So things like mango with a little bit of chipotle seasoning in there, or pineapple with some cilantro, blueberries with basil. So there's so many different ways that you can flavor it up, make it interesting, make it colorful, and put them in the little popsicle molds. Or if you don't have popsicle molds, you can just use paper cups, kind of like Dixie cups and the old school popsicle sticks, and fill them. And you've immediately got a low sugar, high protein frozen treat that would be great for any time. And take that same concept, turn it into a smoothie, and you can use your Greek yogurt in place of a protein powder and make your smoothie. So, of course, you don't have to add the fresh herbs. You don't have to take that extra step. You could just use frozen fruit, but that is a way to just kind of make it interesting, make it fun, punch it up a bit. Cheese sauce. So I had read this one, but I thought there's no way that Greek yogurt is going to make a really good cheese sauce, but it really does. So you can melt equal amounts of shredded cheese. You can use reduced fat or regular shredded cheese and plain Greek yogurt. Keep it over low heat, just simmer it a little bit, and it makes a delicious savory cheese sauce that you could put over vegetables, you could put it with chicken, or you could drizzle it over a low carb side dish, something like whipped cauliflower. You can also use Greek yogurt in soup. So you can add a creaminess with just a little bit of Greek yogurt, kind of like you would just heavy cream. The biggest key though is do it after you take the soup off of the heat. So don't do it while the soup is heating. Otherwise, that Greek yogurt will curdle. Nobody wants that. So, but it can be a nice way to add just a creamy texture to soups. I've also done that if I've done something like, say, a Southwest shredded chicken using something like chicken thighs and tomatoes and a slow cooker, but it's a little too acidic with just that. So I like adding that creaminess. So again, after taking it off the heat, I'll add a little bit of that 2% Fage Greek yogurt through it. And it kind of adds just that bit of creaminess and it doesn't curdle once you've done it off the heat. Deviled eggs, I use Greek yogurt in place of mayonnaise in any type of deviled egg recipe and love it. And chicken salad. This is also one of my favorite all time. You can't go wrong with it. So, however you do your chicken salad, tuna salad, egg salad, shrimp salad, you name it, all you're doing is using Greek yogurt in place of whatever mayonnaise or sour cream you would usually do. Salad dressing, this is one that you also really can't mess it up. And so basically take the plain Greek yogurt, a bit of milk or unsweetened almond milk, and whatever types of herbs or spices, shake it up, and you've got a high flavor, high protein, low carb salad dressing, low calorie salad dressing. So think like Greek yogurt with some minced garlic, cilantro, and a tiny bit of olive oil and milk, just a splash each of olive oil and milk. Shake it up, and you've got your dressing. So there's so many different ways you can use it. Greek yogurt can also be used as a butter substitute in baking. Now, you can't replace all of the butter with Greek yogurt because butter is going to give other properties. It's going to add texture, everything to it. So we can't you replace all of the butter, but you can do half of the butter. So say your recipe calls for 1 cup of butter, you can use half a cup of butter and half a cup of Greek yogurt, and you would save like over 700 calories and 60 grams of saturated fat that way. Plus, again, adding all the nutrients that we're getting with the Greek yogurt. I like adding Greek yogurt to oatmeal, and it seems weird, I know, to put Greek yogurt into your oatmeal, but I've had a lot of clients try it. I actually had someone first told me that. I thought I didn't think it would go over with other clients, but they've tried it and they like it. You can also add things like nut butter, or there's also now all these powdered peanut butters. Whipping that into the Greek yogurt, putting a tiny bit of a swerve or natural plant based sweetener, and it makes a really great dip for like a party platter for fresh fruit. So, those are so many different ways that we can use Greek yogurt, reap those full health benefits of Greek yogurt, even if you don't think you like it. So I hope that helped to clear things up. If it left you with even more questions, you can always email me at molly@mollykimball.com. And thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that you enjoyed this podcast. And you can find links to some of these products we mentioned also in our show notes of this episode. I'm Molly Kimball, and you've been listening to Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, the podcast. If you would like more Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, head over to mollykimball.com, and you can follow me, Molly Kimball RD, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And if you haven't yet, please go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. And join us next week for another dose of Fueled Wellness and Nutrition. Thanks for listening, and stay focused on living your strongest, healthiest life possible.